Hello, this is Richard Murphy, and I want to talk about the long, hot summer of 2021. I don't, of course, know that we're going to have a long, hot summer in 2021. There are some things I can guess at. This one is quite beyond my forecasting ability. But what I do expect to have is a very long, frustrating summer that could see temperatures rise. That's the temperatures of the people of the UK. And why is that? Well, because we have been led to have the expectation that we are going to have a much better summer than we did in 2020, and that the coronavirus crisis will, in effect, already be over. I personally don't share that view. I actually think that the government has hyped expectation to an unreasonable level, and as a consequence, the degree of stress, anxiety, and outright trouble that there will be in the UK as a result is going to be way above any reasonable expectation that somebody should have, and certainly above the level of expectation that we'd have had if the government had acted responsibly. The fact is that we don't know we have beaten coronavirus as yet. I'd love to say we have, but across Europe we are seeing the consequences of the outbreaks of the B117 variety, and there are other new variants that are already known to exist and which pose significant threats. They are spreading. We know that they're spreading. We know that many European countries are heading for lockdown. As a result, we know that the government's roadmap, which says that from June 21st we should, in theory, be open to live pretty much normally and that foreign holidays will be allowed, is already, frankly, pie in the sky. That travel is not going to be permitted come June, not if, as is very likely, very many European countries remain in a very high degree of lockdown with regard to COVID, and if, as is very likely, we will also see an increase in cases in the UK. Now, I know that many people believe that we're different here from the EU, that we've managed vaccines well, and they haven't. And yes, to some degree, superficially, that appears to be the case. They have clearly not managed their vaccine rollout programs well in many European countries. Why is a debate for another day. That's what's happened. But we haven't either. We have given an awful lot of people, me included, a single dose of vaccine. But vaccination happens when you have a double dose. We don't know whether we're going to be able to fulfill the promise to a great many people to have that second dose as yet within the timescales that are required. And let's not pretend that there are no timescales. There are. 12 weeks was already an extension. With regard to Pfizer, nobody knows if that was a realistic extension. With regard to AstraZeneca, it was claimed that this was good because, in fact, there was some sign that the efficiency of the vaccine increased with a more extended gap between the first and second doses. But that was still subject to having the second dose. There are going to be vaccine shortages in April. The number of people who are going to get vaccinated, even a first dose in that month, is going to be lower than anticipated. We don't know whether it is going to be possible for vaccines to continue to be supplied during the course of May, June and July because of restrictions in supply from both Pfizer and AstraZeneca that we know might happen. And as a consequence, the UK has become a hotbed for new variants, and that's precisely because we have a half vaccinated population where the prospect of growth of new variants is high. Now, that of course may be me being deeply pessimistic, but it's a pessimism that matches what I know is the thinking by many within the NHS. I'm told by reliable sources, people who are in hospitals and trusts, that there is a plan for another coronavirus peak in the UK, that it is expected that there will be another outbreak, and that the planning is for that to happen by the summer. July is the anticipated peak month. And why is that? Well, because schools have already reopened. We have seen R rising in Scotland already because they reopened schools earlier. We are seeing a plateauing with regard to the number of cases in England and Wales. The plateauing means literally a levelling off. The chance is that we're already seeing R rising here and that cases will rise again. And yes, I know there is a belief that this will not give rise to an increase in the number of hospitalisations and the number of serious cases, but there's no certainty that will be the result. So if it is true that we are going to be held in more restrictions than we anticipated, and I think that is likely, at least with regard to foreign travel and maybe with regard to many other issues, as the summer months come up and upon us, are people going to be happy about that? Clearly not. Are people going to accept those constraints? I'm not sure. Is there going to be an increasing degree of frustration as a result? Yes, of course there is. Will people want to express that frustration? Some will. Does that spill over into other frustrations about the government's behaviour? The consequences of Brexit, where, for example, we are now seeing the serious impact upon agriculture and the food processing industry, the frustrations with regard to education, the frustrations with regard to so many other issues, and the rising unemployment that we are also now seeing. Yes, of course it is. And so my expectation is that the government has got to do something dramatic to contain this anger, or it is going to spill over. Now, I am no fan of disruption in society. I'm a naturally small c conservative with regard to such things. But do I understand why people want to get frustrated and angry, and why they will, and why they might try to protest as a consequence, and why that will inevitably be more prevalent amongst the young? Look, it doesn't take rocket science to understand these things, does it? They are a fact of life, and we've all been young, and we've all wanted to have chance, and we've all had aspiration, and we've all had hopes for a dream summer. And if they don't happen, then there will be frustration. Now, have I got an answer to this? Well, only that the government has to step up to the plate and offer something else to the people who are having their hopes crushed, in particular the younger part of our community, who have seen more than 80% of the job losses impact them when older people have not suffered as much. So yes, the government has to take action. It has to promise something to younger people now to contain this anger and to constrain it. Are they? There's no sign of it. Do they show sign that they're understanding this? No. Do they actually do anything other than want to pass laws which say that protest is going to be illegal? No. I'm really worried. We have lived through the most extraordinary period. It has been exceptional. Nobody can doubt that. Attitudes are changing. The ability of us to accept things that we just didn't believe possible a year ago is high. We do now live in different ways. We will be reasonable if there is a sign of an outcome. I'm quite sure that that is true of most people, but not if there is no cooperation from the government. And the government at the moment has fueled expectation unfairly, unreasonably, and unjustifiably. I cannot avoid the fear that as a result we will have a deeply disturbed summer. I don't want there to be a long, hot summer of rioting or disturbance or anything else in the UK in 2021. But it's beholden on the government to make the changes now that promise why the world will be better in the future if that is to be held in check. It isn't doing that. I'm worried. You should be worried. We need to prepare for this. We need to face the reality that we may not be free of this virus for some time to come as yet, or its consequences. And that means the government has to think better than it's done to date. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in what I've been saying in this video, please subscribe. There is a button below the viewing screen. If you're interested in what I have to say on Twitter, I'm at Richard J. Murphy on that medium. If you want to look at my blog, that's taxresearch.org.uk, and we have a Facebook page as well, Richard J. Murphy. So one of those things will get you more information on what this video series is about, and I hope I'll see you again soon.